of the Sustaining Committee. Welcome everybody today. We have a first winter day. How exciting. So at least we never get bored in New England. Things are always moving. We're living, as you know, we're living in extraordinary times. Humanity is most resilient and we will prosper and move forward no matter what challenges we're facing at the moment. I would like to think back to the last great pandemic, which was the Spanish flu, and it took some time, but we moved on and the world prospered, so we will do so again. And there's been actually some benefits from all this, and that is that we're all amazingly resilient, and so many of us adapted to working remotely, and many companies are thriving. So on that positive note, I would just like to share with you about a few things that the Sustaining Committee is doing to try and help us all stay connected, stay well, and keep informed. So we are very, very fortunate today to have with us Dr. Ellen, who is a long-standing league member, a doctor of psychology at Mass General Hospital, and very well respected in her field. Thank you so much, Ellen, for being with us today. We appreciate it very much, for I know how busy you are. We were lucky to have you because you've had a whole week of conferences. So this is, hopefully after today, you can have an afternoon of rest.
I'm looking forward to that.
We have there's going to be around 70 of us on this call, a wonderful mixture of active and sustainers. We hope that this event is the first of many collaborative events we're going to be doing together this year. Why I have such a large number on the call, if I may take a few minutes just to share with you what the Sustaining Committee is planning for this year. So the first thing that we're doing is we're focusing very hard on encouraging the concept of one league. We would like to encourage closer interaction with actives and sustainers so that we all feel connected to the league and to each other. And technology is very helpful in that matter, including telephones. There are many directions in which we're exploring this goal. The first is through our projects. We realize the corona has turned our world upside down, but the sustainers would very much like to be connected to the actives through projects. We will be participating in Women for Women initiative. Lucy Mayers is our active liaison to the actives, and she's also the co-chair of the Sustainer Committee this year. And she would like to hear from all the projects as you start thinking about how you're going to move forward. Sustainers will be willing to sit on your committee if that's going to be helpful, or they will be willing to come and help out as need be on a day-by-day basis. So please keep that in mind as you're planning the year going forward. We would also very much like to be mentoring actives, either in a professional capacity or in a personal capacity. If you're interested in being a mentor or if you're interested in being mentored, please contact Jen Pelton, who is our contact for that particular initiative. And lastly, we are going to be doing a number of events this year, today being the first one, which will be opening to all the actives. Corona has somewhat tied our hands on as to what we would like to do, but there's always opportunities. So with that, we are going to be doing programs like today, which we hope you're going to find helpful. We're also going to be doing some light programming, such as our Reef Master Making class on November the 12th, starting at 6 p.m., which we'll be learning how to do holiday reefs, either for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. And you're going to be encouraged to have a good glass of wine standing by as we're making these reefs. So that could be a bit of fun. The ingredients for the reefs will be posted on the Junior League website, so you can purchase those beforehand and make along together with our presenter. And we'll also be starting a series of conversations where we will be exploring issues of relevance to our society today. We will begin the list of conversations with a program on January the 14th, which will be focusing on climate change and what we can actually do. So this series is going to be run for us by Patty Manhard, So please feel free to reach out to her with ideas or if you'd like to help her in any way. All details will be posted as soon as we have enough. We have the planning progresses and we have something more to post. So keep an eye on the Junior League website. It's a great source of information. And we have a very, very special event coming up, which I would like you to note. And that, again, it's going to be on November the 12th from 5 to 6. That's going to be the hour before the reef making class. And we're going to have a town meeting with the president of the Junior League of Boston. And a number of the board members will be joining her. We really encourage all sustainers and actives to join this town meeting. The purpose of the town meeting is going to be to make your voices heard. We want to hear what you're concerned about. We want to hear your suggestions. We want to see how you feel about things that are going on in the league. We want to feel about the league structure. This is your opportunity to get involved, get your voice heard, and hear what other people also have to say. And we particularly extend a hand of welcome to the young sustainers. You're very, very important to us. We do want to hear how you feel and how you feel we should be doing. So please sign up for this event on the website. Now, before I begin, just a final few housekeeping points. A sustainer update is going out to all the sustainers in the first week of every month. Please look out for that because that will be your way of knowing what the Sustain Committee is planning, what we're doing, what we're thinking, and we would love to hear your feedback. And if there's things we're not doing or things we should be doing, please let us know. All of us are now familiar with Zoom, so there's no need to say too much except to say, please mute yourselves during Ellen's presentation. Put your questions in the chat box. I think Shanna's going to be monitoring those. And we'll plan to get as many questions as we possibly can. So again, Ellen, thank you so much for being with us. Very much appreciate this. We very much look forward to it. And I hand over to you.
That's great. Well, thank you all for coming. And I'm so happy to have the opportunity to speak with you today about stress management during the time of COVID. And we will have some time at the end for individual questions. And yes, Shannon will be monitoring the chat. So if we have repeated questions, that way we can address it all at once. So I do want to just talk about what the basics of stress are. And we certainly have all been feeling stress, and we use the word quite often loosely. But stress is actually a perception that we have a threat in front of us that we cannot cope with. And we tend to feel overwhelmed or numbed. We may become anxious or depressed. And we really can harken back to elementary school days. We used to feel stress when a teacher called on us and asked us what was 9 times 9. I don't know about you, but I wanted to crawl under my desk and hide. So now, if somebody asks that question, I would answer it. It's no longer a threat. However, the question, the situation is the same. It's how I perceive and cope with it that it's changed. And that's the definition also of how we move into resiliency. Here I have just a little bit of information on what the chronic effects of stress itself are before I move into what creates resiliency for individuals. So wear and tear, if you ever hear the word allostatic load, that's the wear and tear that occurs on the brain and body due to stress. We do know that 60 to 90% of healthcare visits involve illnesses that are caused or exacerbated by stress. Stress continues to contribute to what we call non-communicable diseases, NCDs. So that includes things like cardiovascular disease, many psychiatric disorders, depression or anxiety. And they really are the number one global health issue in the world at this point in time. Now, what do I mean by this allostatic load? Well, we have stressors in our life, and there's always an up and down of the stress level in our day-to-day living. But allostatic load is when we really start to have an elevated baseline. And we really want to look at that elevated baseline, especially today. All of us have an elevated baseline due to COVID. We've suffered many, many challenges to our day-to-day lives, from our ability to get together with loved ones and friends to how we engage in work, or perhaps we've lost work, perhaps we have children at home that are going to school from home. There's so many things that have changed. And yes, stress can be beneficial, but too much stress decreases our level of well-being. And that's really what the original Yerkes-Dodson law spoke about. If we have a difficult task and we have a lot of stress, a little stress, that's great. That improves our capabilities to focus. It gets the adrenaline going. We get a rush. But too much, we start to feel tired, fatigued, overwhelmed, can't concentrate. So, what are the things that help us with human resiliency? Over at the Benson Henry Institute, we've really started to look at human resiliency as an equation. What we have in the numerator is the term stress. And stress we've just defined. But what about resiliency? Well, there's a number of things that the research shows enhance resiliency. They include relaxation response, meditation type techniques, social support and pro-social behavior, cognitive skills, how we reframe and look at things, positive psychology, if you will. Spiritual connectedness, that does not have to be religion, that can be how you feel you're connected to the world and interact with the world. Exercise, nutrition, and sleep hygiene are all important. And when you add all these resilience factors together, you can actually decrease your vulnerability to illness. Illness might be that you exhibit the stress responses, chronic headaches, difficult sleeping, GI distress, depression, anxiety, poor focus. So we're going to talk about how do we enhance resiliency techniques today. And when I use the term the relaxation response, I simply mean a state of relaxed passive attention to some form of repetitive absorbing stimuli. Now, you can get those via apps such as Headspace, 10% Happier, Insight Timer. You could go to YouTube and download a walk in the Muir Woods and take that so that you're mindfully present with that walk. I happen to have gone to school in the Bay Area, and I love the Muir Woods and have recently been downloading some of those visual scenes of walking through the Muir Woods. That's very relaxing for me. So you can also ask questions about that as we go along at the end here, because I practice everything I teach. And I think the term practice is the key, because everything is a lifelong practice if we're thinking about well-being and health. So the relaxation response does help with many, many physiological challenges. It lowers heart rate, it lowers blood pressure, metabolic systems change, the mitochondria become more active. Actually, it's really interesting that we've started to see the powerhouses of the cells, the mitochondria, become more active. The telomerase, that they actually expand and are longer in individuals who practice regular relaxation technique skills versus older individuals who do not. So as we age, they tend to shorten. We can elongate it. So there's genomic changes that we understand about now. We also know that there's various brain changes. So for example, the amygdala, where the fight or flight or stress response is mediated in the brain, actually expands and becomes larger, it takes up more space with chronic stress. However, and the prefrontal cortex decreases in size. That's where we integrate our outside behaviors, interact with other human beings, irritability is more mediated. So that shrinks. But if you practice relaxation techniques, we see the prefrontal cortex expand in size and the amygdala shrink. So it's really quite fascinating. Descartes may have wanted us to separate mind and body, but as our technology progresses, we're starting to see that you cannot separate mind and body. So there's cognitive changes we become aware of. Our memory becomes better, our attention becomes better, our ability to connect with others becomes better. In fact, here's something that I think is a great tidbit that's relatively new data in the field, and it's being replicated. is that for every year over 50, meditators' brains are estimated to be an additional 52 days younger than individuals who were non-meditators. So you can see the controls on the left-hand side of your screen versus on the right, the meditators on the right-hand side of your screen. And that links very well with what I just told you about telomerase. And the whole body seems to be physiologically, genomically a bit younger if we engage in self-care techniques like this. So neurogenesis, boy, this is an interesting one, because basically what we're learning here is that the brain can heal itself and can expand and grow, that dendritic remodeling does occur as time goes by. It's not all preordained by time we're 15 or 20. The other thing, another way just to really work on meditation, if you'd like, and a short technique, which is one I'm going to teach you today, is something called minis. And minis are short techniques you can do for 30 to 60 seconds. And they help you to stop, breathe, reflect, and choose a response versus a knee-jerk reaction. The knee-jerk reaction is COVID's never going to end. The response might be, you know what? We've gotten through 8 months of it. We're moving along. It will end sometime. As Ursula said, we got through the pandemic of 1918. We shall get through this. So let me introduce you to just two different ways you could engage in a mini. And you can close your eyes or leave them open as I speak, but breathe at your own rate, because I'll be doing this out loud, and normally you'll do it in your own mind's eye at your own rate. So the first way you might be interested in eliciting a mini is to choose a word. For example, breathing in peace and out tension, and in peace, out tension, in peace, out tension. Second way to elicit a mini is to count. For example, breathing in one, out one, in two, out two, in three, out three. So you can choose any word, just wiggle your fingers and toes if you were practicing with me, and bring your attention back here. But you can see, you can use any word. I mean, I wouldn't use a name, even if pets aggravated us at some point. So I'd choose a neutral or positive word. I would also, if you count, you may only want to count till 5. And at that point, restart at 1, just so you don't get lost in a count. But whatever you like. The other thing that really promotes resiliency is something called cognitive restructuring. And this has something to do with positive psychology. I like to think about it as accurate thinking, so that we don't become overwhelmed by the negative. So if we look at this chart, I have on the left-hand side a stress response, where somebody has a negative automatic thought, like, I'll never get it done, I can't do anything, I'm a terrible person. I could have this regarding a PowerPoint I'm trying to get in for a talk, let's say. My feelings would be anger, guilt, anxiety. And let's say my stress reactivity on a 0 to 10 scale is a 10 out of 10, because I'm saying this kind of phrase to myself, right? Well, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are these statements 100% true? If the answer is no, we have wiggle room. And that means we can form a more adaptive response of some sort. How can we really change this into a more accurate thought? Well, more accurate thought might be, I've done things like this before, I can do it again. I do a lot. I'm an okay person. I just need a little more time or help. I'll ask Jocelyn for an extension. Uh, Whatever it might be. So again, our stress reactivity goes to a 5 out of 10. We're not looking for nirvana zero. There's still a stressor in front of us. We still have COVID in front of us for quite a few more months. So 5 out of 10, what that does, it allows us to focus, problem solve, and engage others in our day to day living instead of isolating, withdrawing, not being able to focus, and not accomplishing any of our goals because we feel so overwhelmed. That's the concept behind cognitive restructuring. And that's what I'm talking about here. If you can write down your thoughts, that would be huge. You might write them down after you notice your gut is clenching or your anxiety is really high and say, what have I been saying to myself? Is it true? I will never be a natural blonde is 100% true. I have to accept that one before I can problem solve it. But I'll never get through COVID. That's what some of you might have been saying 8 months ago. But look at this, you've done it. And maybe you've thrived in certain ways. You've learned how to use Zoom. You've learned how to talk on the phone more to loved ones more than ever before because we're all connecting a little bit more. We're all slowing down a bit. Instead of going to CVS 5 times a week, we're going once a week or every other week. And maybe we didn't need to do so many errands. Spending a little more time with folks is okay. So this is an example of a patient who is in her mid 30s, has chronic anxiety. She's employed full time, has 3 children and a spouse. She's actually the one that the cognitive did the cognitive log I just showed you. She loved cognitive restructuring, and she said at the end of our work together, I have a tendency to worry about things over which I have no control. I've learned that if I stop and breathe, I can get through anything. So reframing can be very important. And the Chinese have an interesting term for a crisis. They use 2 words, danger plus opportunity. So I would say that's a lovely way to think of it versus everything's just a crisis and we lose control, right? Actually, COVID, yes, there's a danger, but there's an opportunity for us to grow in different ways. If you told me I was going to spend 8 months essentially quarantined with my husband, I would have not thought that possible. However, it's worked quite well. And for me, I now know I married the right man, although I guess I knew that for a while, but it reaffirmed it. So there's many things that we can look at. What have been the opportunities? I learned to garden. I actually froze all these wild raspberries we have in our yard, and I'm going to make a pie for Thanksgiving, even if it's just the 2 of us. We'll get to that. So we are what we think. Buddha told us that. It's so true. And we know the neurotransmissions in the brain change with what we think. If we imagine a lion chasing us, we have a chemical cascade that triggers a fight or flight response and has a cascade of other physiological effects that are negative for our body. If we wait and only have the stress response to a real lion chasing us, it's going to be less often. Our body is going to be healthier. The snow outside, I don't know where you are, but I'm in an area that's getting plentiful snow. You know what? I'm looking out at it saying, it is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's okay. You know what? I love the changing seasons. And I'm going to be mindful and enjoy the change and what it looks like with the snow on the trees and on their leaves and branches right now. Versus, oh my gosh, I'm terrorized by the snow. It's your choice. And in fact, what we know is that happy individuals tend to have positive thoughts despite what's happening. They don't let negative circumstances define them as much. They tend to not compare themselves to others as much. They can often reframe a negative experience to make deep and durable meaning. What I mean by that is somebody like Viktor Frankl, who said man is not diminished by suffering, but suffering without meaning. He was a survivor and philosopher of the Holocaust. Individuals can be less reactive and less regretful. The minis and cognitive restructuring significantly help us get there. and we're growing all the time. But here's the core characteristic of happy individuals: it's appreciation. And maybe we've used this COVID time to appreciate things just that much more. The basic things in our day to day life: a warm cup of tea, a laugh with a friend over the telephone. The key is to appreciate oneself, others, the world at large, and life. In fact, I've even become friends, I think, with my squirrels in the backyard. So, you know what? I'm appreciating them more. I never knew how busy they were. It's quite fascinating to me, although I have to be careful what I say, I suppose. But it is. So, William James stated this quite well many years ago, about 100 years ago. The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. And it's too bad that more people will not accept this tremendous discovery and begin living with it. Food for thought. So there's a lot of research on self-regulation. I just want you to know this is not fairy dust. There's research that shows positive psychology really makes a difference. My apologies for that going off. I should have moved that phone. It will stop in a moment. And I'm just going to give it one more ring and I know it'll stop. I just don't want to get up. Good. So spirituality. This is another thing that's very important for well-being and health. Spirituality, healing, and religion. Interesting words. To heal is an old English word. It means to set right or amend. Religio is to reattach. So when we think about spirituality, it allows us to amend things and to attach or restore ourselves. And that's very important. And in fact, I have no preference, and this is not because I want to give credence to one um, religion over another. I'm just more aware of the Judeo-Christian texts. I want to just tell you a little bit about Psalm 104. Way back when, people understood that positive psychology was important for health. There's this quote: thankfulness, a grateful attitude, will cushion the impact of trials when they come against you. That is very, very true. Didn't I just say appreciation and balanced thinking? So this has been a tenet of mankind forever, and we can harken back to that. And many people find spiritual teachings beneficial for them. So if that is you, that is okay. One client of mine, who I'm going to discuss in more detail in a few moments, found this quote, Proverbs 3:24, when you lie down, you will not be afraid, your sleep will be sweet. This was very important for her because she had an elderly husband who had Alzheimer's that she's living with, and she was afraid he was going to get up and walk out in the middle of the night. She was very fearful and could not sleep well. But this mantra, as she repeated it to herself, helped her to fall asleep and have a more healing, restorative night's rest. Something else key is social support. Something like Junior League for many of us has been a guiding light and support for decades, certainly for myself. My friendships, even though I may not be in contact with people all the time, means so very much to me. And I think social support is critical. And some of you might be saying, well, how do I do that in the age of COVID? Well, social distancing doesn't mean social isolating. You don't need to isolate. You can connect with people, whether it's via Zoom, FaceTime, telephone, distance safe gatherings outside. Perhaps you want to wear your mask and get together with some friends in your driveway or garage. I don't know about all of you, but I figure we tailgate at football games in the winter. I can certainly tailgate in my driveway this winter, every now and then on a decent day with some local neighbors. And in fact, we've been doing that all summer, which has been quite a blessing. So this is just some of the science. The talks about social support being beneficial. But I'm going to show you this, and this is a nice diagram that some of you might want to engage in. It's a social support or energy exchange. You're in the middle of a lot of things in your life. You have pets, you have work, you might have children, parents, spouses. Jim is my spouse. Sometimes he takes more energy than I get from him. Apparently, the day I made this, that was the case. And what you want to do is think about all those things in your life, and you want these arrows to be approximately equivalent. An equivalent amount going out is coming in. That's going to be what recharges your battery. If we don't charge our cell phone, it crashes. If we don't charge ourselves, we crash. So think about this. And if there's too many arrows going out, what do you need to either decrease being involved in, or what could you add? Is there another circle you can add that would give you some more energy? Number one complaint I'm hearing during COVID is sleep. People just feel their sleep has been upended. Just remember, the 7 to 9 hours is the average. It's not an exact 8. And for many people, if you sleep and feel rested after 6 hours of sleep, God bless you, that's fine. Positive sleep thoughts at the beginning of sleep can be very important. You might want to do a relaxation response. I have to say, I do not recommend the news at all several hours prior to sleep. It's only going to cause you to stress. Our media in the US especially is horribly negative. And that was prior to COVID and prior to this election cycle, whichever side you're on, it's very stressful. So the key is not to engage in any stimulating activity. I would actually say ideally 2 hours prior to sleep. Watch a funny TV show, not the news. A modest sleep loss is associated with increased pro-inflammatory cytokines. That is not good for the body. You might notice pain levels increasing. Short sleep duration causes a lot of physiological problems and changes in the neurochemistry of the body. Now, another thing that's very challenging during COVID is exercise. I think this is helpful. Just think about exercise as 150 minutes of moderate intensity during the week. And that could be about 20 minutes of walking a day. And if you want, you can do 60 minutes on 2 days and you almost have it all done. Any exercise is better than none, though. So if you live in an apartment building and can't get outside, it might just be walking up and down your hallway or up and down a stairwell that's safe. Okay. So just think about that. It does not have to be every single day, an hour a day. All or nothing is not necessary. It will improve your cognitive functioning. It will improve your mood, your dopamine, serotonin, endorphin levels, all of that impact mood and anxiety at a significant level. The other thing I want to talk about quickly during COVID is a healthy diet, because many of us are reaching for a lot of carbohydrates and comfort foods. I think the average weight gain for the US citizen is 10 pounds during these past 8 to 9 months. So you do want to build some awareness of your comfort eating, try to limit your sugar, try to make healthier choices if possible, and keep a diary, food diary. There's a lot of easy ones online if you want to download an app. Try to think about eating within an hour of waking so you don't become too hungry. Eat something every 3 to 4 hours thereafter, because if we get ravenous, that's problematic. Try to decrease late night eating. And think about your plate at your meal times as half fruit or vegetable, a quarter whole grain, and a quarter protein. It's just a nice simple diagram if you want to do that in your mind. Now, this is another client, and she's an adult woman with chronic headache, work stress, living with her husband. And she's reporting feeling pain, distress, fatigue, decreased concentration. This is the woman whose husband actually had Alzheimer's. And at the end of our work, she said, or during our work actually, she said, I realize the pain combined with the stress I've lived with can be moderated through attention to self-care. The stress has been a barrier to fulfilling my goals, her self-care goals. I'm getting out more, appreciating what I have, and accomplishing my goals at work and home much better. So, again, self care can be important. If we don't care for ourselves, we're not going to be able to care for anyone else. Again, mind body cognitive behavioral techniques are real. It's not fairy dust. That's all this slide is about. I'm going to just kind of skip over it in so that we have time for some questions. But I just want to leave you with what some of the signs of successfully coping are. And they include things like the ability to carry out work, be less irritable, be more friendly, be able to engage with others better, tolerate frustration better, feeling more of a sense of belonging, all of the things we need to get through this challenging time of COVID, and just life itself, because there's always challenges with life, no matter what. So, on that note, and I think we have about 15 minutes left. Shannon, do we have any questions that folks have sent
Yes,
to?
we have. One question we got is, how should we manage different beliefs, be it with COVID, politics, etc., among family members who may feel differently than us?
Well, I think that gets back to acceptance. So, acceptance is the root for happiness, right? Let me go back here. Acceptance and appreciation. We have to appreciate and accept that all individuals have different beliefs. If you asked us, would we accept people's different thoughts about religion? Of course we would. So we must do that with regard to politics and COVID. I think COVID is sort of like a religion. People are deciding, do they go to church every Sunday? Do they go to mass every day? Do they go once a month? Granted, we know wearing masks is very important. I'm not saying that, but is this person somebody I'm willing to give up my friendship and relationship with because of a difference of opinion over a presidential choice or over how many times they leave their house? That is very important. There might be some people you decide, I've learned some things about their character that makes it so I wouldn't want them in my life. If it's a good friend or family member you've known for 25 years, they've always been there through good and bad times with you, you might decide, you know what, we have different ways of achieving what we believe is the right end for ourselves, our country, whatnot. You have the choice whether to see someone who goes in and eats indoors at restaurants. Technically, that's legal in Massachusetts right now. You can do that. They have restrictions on the number of people. You may choose not to do that, and you may choose not to socialize with that individual. I do want to make it very clear also, holidays, very important. I really am going to stress trying to keep it to your household or to one to three other people that you have already been socializing with without mask indoors. To start bringing anyone else into the picture is going to skyrocket the numbers. And I'll make this plea for our medical teams. Please think about that. There will be time in the future for many joyous holidays. If you have a garage and you want to, like myself, we always went to tailgates, things like that. I have Bunsen burner things, what are those? Chafing dishes. And I'm going to put some things possibly outside, and I have some heaters for my garage, and it'll be driveway and garage. And I will probably have a couple of people come over for just a couple of hours, maybe just an hour, of my family members, and we'll eat a little something outside. It might become just dessert. It may not be the whole meal, but that's okay. And it'll be sometime over the holiday weekend of Thanksgiving so that we can see one another. It doesn't have to be that day. So stop, breathe, reflect, and choose before you jump into a decision. And also don't just assume it's horror, that it's going to be a horror and it's terrible and you'll never get through it if you're not together. You know what? If one of you had the flu on a Thanksgiving and didn't get together, or on Christmas one year, you got through. I'm thinking about my own family. There was one Christmas, my niece and her children, who we always spent Christmas with, didn't make it. You know what? It happens. They came the following year. God willing, we'll all be together next year.
That's right.
And then we have one more question. How do people cope in extreme situations, such as during World War II? Are we being too self-indulgent right now?
Well, they were the greatest generation, weren't they? And I think we have to remember there's a reason. I think they were able to go through the travesties of a world war, the loss of many loved ones, and still come out appreciating life, appreciating and looking forward to their future. And they exhibited loving kindness toward those who came after them, their children, their family members. You know what? People were more civil to one another, even in politics. Maybe something can come out of this, and maybe are we too self-indulgent? I'm not exactly sure I understand the completeness of that question, but if we can make meaning out of what we're doing, that would be very important. This is not so, I mean, it is so terrible, but maybe for each of us as an individual, it can be a learning and growth experience. You know, there's another quote. I have to look it up. Wait a minute. I heard it rather the other day, and I really liked it. Let's see if it's here. It was another quote by Viktor Frankl, and I was talking to somebody. I did an interview for the BBC, and she knows the Frankl family in London. Yes, she told me this, and I wrote it down. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves, and that's okay. Maybe let's do a little self-change. Also, I would highly recommend, if you're having challenges, thinking about looking up loving kindness meditations on YouTube or somewhere. They're wonderful, beautiful things that help you bring loving kindness to yourself and acceptance to yourself, people near you, people in your community, and to the world at large. We need more of that. It's up to us. Do we want to help the world become a better place?
And then we have a couple more questions came in. And one of them was, what message can we pass on to the people we work with in our projects now when we cannot meet with them?
Can that individual clarify, not meet with them in what way? Are you, because, oh, do you mean like the students that you're not able to meet with in person if you're doing that? Can I have a little more data there? Can they?
Yes, it's really the people you're. What message can we pass on of hope to the clients in our projects? Many of whom are feeling very stressed at the moment. We can't meet with them personally. We can't hug them.
Right.
I'm just wondering whether we should suggest the league members involved in some of these projects to actually reach out to them either by a phone call or writing something to them.
I think you can still, you can't physically hug someone. You can mentally and emotionally hug someone and give them loving kindness. And that should be said, that we're still here. The human race is actually doing a lot of amazing things, that we're going to have some vaccines within a year of this epidemic is phenomenal. Think about the doctors, the nurses, the mail people, the people that clean the hospitals. We have amazing frontline workers. We have amazing human beings in this world. Try to help them see that and remind them how wonderful they are that they've gotten this far. If you told anyone, like I said, that they were going to make it 8 months in this predicament, they would have said no way and laughed at you. Remind them of their strengths. Helping people recognize their inner strengths is very important during this time. And if you want to do something really kind, This might be the time when you do write a letter, you send a holiday card. Maybe you send or drive by and drop a carnation in their doorway. You can do so many different things that just show a little thoughtfulness and kindness, but loving kindness and compassion. Let that bubble out of you and they will feel that hug. There's many
And
ways to do it.
And then one last question is, do you have any good book recommendations?
I love some of the Dalai Lama's books. I think The Art of Happiness is a lovely one for right now. And the Book of Joy, that was the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. They're easy reads and they're good and they're healing for this time.
Awesome, thank you. And then I don't see any more questions in the chat. Ursula, did anyone privately message you any questions?
And if not, I would just say, please feel the loving kindness and feel the warmth of everyone here. If you'd like, we can end with just sort of a simple meditation, sending love out to each other. In fact, we're going to. Let me make that executive decision. So why don't you just close your eyes for a moment and focus on your breath. Breathing in peace and out. And in peace and out. And as you sit here, feel the loving kindness coming into your body from those who are sharing this space with us. Feel light and hope, wisdom and kindness coming into your being. And allow yourself to send loving kindness and peace, wisdom and joy, blessings to all those here with us. Allow these feelings to filter through you. Kindness and love coming in. Acceptance. May all beings be happy. May all beings feel peace in this time of challenge. May there be light and joy. Collectively, find the good in our day. Breathe in peace and out. Now just wiggle your fingers and toes and bring your attention back to this call. Please try to carry this feeling of peace and well-being with you through the rest of the day. I think that's time. Am I right, Shannon?
Thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see everybody.
Thank you so much, Ellen. We very, very much appreciate it. And if you have time, we'd love to have you back. You've been wonderful. So
Always happy to.
Hope to see everybody on our November the 12th town meeting. at 5 o'clock. And I hope those who are artistically inclined or not artistically inclined will come and then stay on for the brief making session at 6 o'clock. There are going to be 2 different sign-ups on the Junior League website, so you get 2 different Zoom